In this video, we're going to look at how to scrape images from Google Images. Some previous videos, I showed you how to use an Instagram scraper and a Flickr scraper. So this time we're going to look at Google Images. Obviously, the reason you would want to use Google Images is because it's Google. They scrape everything. So it's, you'll get a pretty wide swath of images available to you, unlike social networks that are geared just for images. So I'm going to use this library called Google Images Download. It has a ton of good documentation around it, which is always like a nice thing to see when using a library. So I'm just going to go ahead and figure out how to install this. I have installed this before, but I'm going to walk you through like how I would approach trying to figure out how to use this thing. So as always, you want to look at like how to actually install things. So in this case, it looks like they have pushed a lot of their like README and instructional content into another site. So I'm just going to click installation and see what it says to do. So the first thing it says I can do is I can do pip install Google Images download. So I'm going to try this and let's see what happens. So when you're installing pip, it doesn't really matter what directory you're in. So you can just sort of be in your root directory and this will be fine. So I'm going to paste this in here. So it looks like I actually already installed it. So if you see something that says requirement already satisfied, then you're ready to go. If you get an error message, just drop me a note in either Slack or here in the YouTube channel, and I can try to figure it out. I do, in some ways, recall that I might have had an issue with using pip. The other way to do this is to actually do a manual installation, and this is also going to work just fine. So what you can do is you can just copy these lines. So the first thing you're going to do is git clone. You're going to clone that down, and then you run this. And this just moves you into that folder, and then it runs a setup install script. And here you're going to need to enter your password. I'm not going to do this because I already have it installed. So you would just enter your password for your laptop or whatever machine you're running. There we go. Okay, so let's actually try to use this now that it's installed. So if I go back to the GitHub repo and I see documentation homepage or input arguments. Let's try input arguments because that's usually what I look for, is how to actually write this script. Okay, so it looks like we have a bunch of different options here. I see something called keywords. I think that's going to be helpful for me. Limit. So it looks like it defaults to 100, so I'm definitely going to want more than 100 images in order to use this for something like a data set. Let's keep looking. Format. So format's going to be helpful, right, because I probably don't want GIFs, and I probably don't want anything like SVGs, because you can't use those in a system like StyleGAN or any number of things. You basically have to use static images, so JPEG or PNG. It doesn't say whether or not I can use multiple at the same time, so I might have to dig around and try that. Let's see what else. Size. So size is always important for this work. As I showed you with the Flickr scraper, we have to think a lot about what image sizes are available to us. So it looks like, when I've done this in the past, I've generally done greater than 2 megapixels or greater than 4. So let's try that and we'll see how that goes. I don't really want to worry about exact size because I'm going to play with it in the Datasets tools. Possible values, I could use that if I wanted to be if I want to make a really quick data set, but again, I'm going to use Dataset tools to fix this. What else is here? So there's a lot of interesting things in here, and I would definitely recommend you go through and read some of these things and just sort of see what's available to you. But let's get started with just a really basic script. So I know because this is pip, it means it's already installed a software, and that means you don't have to, unlike say Flickr Scraper where you had to be in the Flickr Scrape folder to run it. In this case, it's been installed to sort of your sort of overall preferences and usage behind the scenes. So I know what I can do is I can start typing Google, and if I hit tab, yep, so there's Google Images Download. So that's the first thing I need to do. That just says hey, I want to use this application and I want to run a search. So let's look for the next thing to do. So Let's try a keyword. So the way you can actually type this in is you can do dash dash keywords or dash the shorthand. I'm just going to do dash dash keywords just to sort of show you, but you could also do dash K. That works as well if you're really into like writing less. And then here's what I need to look at next. So why don't we just do another geese check. So let's just type in geese. It's going to try to assume the best. If I want exactly like Canadian geese, actually let's do that. So let's do, in quotes, let's do Canadian geese. And that'll give me exactly what I want. This works just like Google search if you ever use like any of the advanced filters in that. Let's look at limit. So dash dash limit. And I'm going to want, let's say I want 2,000. It also notes here that like in case of occasional errors, you could get less than that limit. So actually, let's maybe just crank this up to 3,000 to make sure we get a little bit more. And the last thing I want is I want format, so JPEG or PNG. So let's actually try to see if we can input in multiple ones. So dash dash format. And let's try JPEG, and let's try PNG, and let's see what happens with this. And then for size, we want greater than 2 megapixels. So let's do dash dash size. And I'm just going to, I think this is actually going to throw an error, but let's try it and see what happens. I think you have to wrap this in quotes, but again, it's unclear. So the next thing I want to make, yeah, so let's just run this and see what happens. And I did get an error. So it looks like, first off, there's a format issue here, which is that I probably can't do comma separated. So let's try space separated. And let's run that. And now I'm getting a size error. So I think the issue here is, and I think I found this out previously when trying this out, is you have to wrap this command in quotes. So that way it knows that it's not like an integer value. So let's try this and see how that works. Unrecognized arguments, PNG. So it looks like I probably can't put in multiple formats. So for my own sanity, I'm just going to use PNG. That way I don't get like any super low res JPEGs or like super compressed JPEGs. And let's see how this goes. And it looks like I have an error here. Looks like we cannot locate the path for ChromeDriver. And that's interesting. I'm not sure how to fix this one. Cool, so I'm going to do a little Googling and I'll be back. That ended up being a bit more annoying than I wanted to be. And what's also interesting is that I had previously run this tool on my machine and it worked fine. So I have no idea what happened there. I will post in the YouTube comments what happened in case you come across the same issue. But essentially what I had to do is I had to install ChromeDriver using Brew. I'm on a Mac, so that's the way you install stuff. And then I had to grab the path for that and then add it to the end of my command here. So let me just show you. So basically what happened is I now have installed ChromeDriver, and using the argument of dash dash ChromeDriver, I then have to point it at this thing. I'm hoping you don't have to do that. We'll find out. Let me know in Slack or in YouTube if this is a common error, and I can add some additional instructions to this video to make that happen. But anyway, if I start running this, it should start working. We're now getting evaluating. It's telling me it's going to take a few moments, which for 3,000 photos is not surprising. And then, okay, so it started downloading, and then it says, unfortunately, all 3,000 could not be downloaded because some images were not downloaded. 0 is all we got for the search filter. Interesting. Okay, so let's just take a look and see what happened here. So I believe this in my root folder, Google Images download, images, and I don't see anything here. Let's try a different keyword and see if we get something else. So I had tried this previously. And I did get some results. So let's see what happens here. So that's interesting. It's possible that Canadian geese is actually like a. It's possible their like search filter is broken, but let me just see. I mean, Google search does pull up a bunch of Canadian geese. Um, it looks like it actually maybe looks for Canada goose. So one thing we could try is just putting that into the search results. Actually, let's try that and see. This is sort of the common use of someone using these tools, is like kind of learning how they work and how they don't work. I'm just going to quit this. The way to quit these commands is to hit Control C on a Mac. So when that happens, you'll get an error message. I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to look at keywords, and I'm actually going to remove the quotes here. And let's do Canada Goose. And if you weren't aware, like the way to move your cursor in the terminal is to hit Option and then click. That will point you anywhere. If you're used to just like a normal text editor and you'd be able to click anywhere, that doesn't work for this. Another quick little tip is that Control A will move you to the beginning of a line, and Control E will move you to the end of the line. So anyway, what I just put in here is Canada Goose for keywords, and I put a limit on this, and let's see what happens. Error, unrecognized argument. So I think, again, like this is another case of where you can't use spaces here. So if it's anything like two terms, then you have to wrap it in quotes. Let's try this again and see what happens. And again, we get no image, no search results. This is really interesting. I wonder if this is like an issue. So in general, what I would do in this case is I would go back to a repo here, and I would just do a search within the issues and just sort of see if I can get this. So usually what I look for is something like this. So actually, this says it can't download any images. So I would just like look through this and see if I can get anything. So it looks like this might be a common issue. If I read this quickly, it just sort of says that it sounds like it's happening somewhat randomly. So it could be like if we try again, that it might work this time. Let's sort of see. Yeah, so I keep getting 0 again here. Let's try something like this. I wonder if something has to do with having a space here, so let's just try this and see what happens. Something is definitely going wrong here. But what is interesting is like the other one that was just micro photography did work. So let's try another search term. Well, that's interesting. Maybe Google just hates geese. Sounds like a Jen Schiffer problem. But yeah, so this thing is kind of working sometimes, and it's kind of not. I mean, this is unfortunately a very common problem with image scrapers. So maybe I'll look around and see if there's a better one for Google Images. This happens to be the one that a lot of people know about. But I would play around with this, see if you can get images down from it. And if not, then we'll go from there. But I think it's worth exploring this and seeing what you can get from this. Let's quickly look at what the images returned. So if I go, no, I want portraits. So this is interesting because, I will say that Google Images will return way more sort of messy search results. And you're going to have to do a lot more work with Google Images download. So I would say, generally use this only in cases where Flickr or Instagram didn't work for you. It's going to be pretty messy. So you can give it a shot, see what you get. I will also say, some of these images are just not very good. I guess we could have said, photographic portraits and seen how that worked. That is very blurry. So some interesting results, and maybe it gives you ideas on how to tweak your data set into a more firmed up direction. Yeah, so you could be welcome to play around with this and see how it works. But I'll say you'll generally have a lot more struggles if you use Google Images downloads. But see how it goes. If you have any questions about anything, let me know in either Slack or in the YouTube. And I'll be posting a couple more videos in the near future on scraping for datasets.